The mining station on Kepler 442b was supposed to be Marcus Chen's fresh start. After losing his job on Earth and watching his savings disappear, the remote asteroid mining gig seemed like his only option. The pay was decent, the work was honest, and most importantly, it was far away from the mess his life had become back home. Marcus had been working the night shift for 3 months when everything changed. He was operating the deep core drill, boring through layers of crystallized methane and rare earth metals, when his scanner picked up something unusual. The readings showed a hollow cavity about 50 meters below the surface, much larger than the typical gas pockets they encountered. "Control, this is Marcus on drill platform 7, he radioed back to the station. "I'm getting some weird readings down here. Looks like a natural cave system or something." The response crackled through his helmet comm. "Copy that, Marcus. Protocol says to investigate any unusual formations. Could be valuable mineral deposits. Take a probe down and see what you find." Marcus lowered the fiber optic camera probe through the drill hole, watching his monitor as it descended into the darkness. The cavity was enormous, stretching beyond the range of his lights. But what caught his attention wasn't the size of the space, it was the strange crystalline formations covering the walls. They pulsed with a soft, rhythmic light, almost like a heartbeat. "Control, you seeing this?" Marcus transmitted, adjusting the camera feed. "Negative, Marcus. Your signal's breaking up, probably interference from those crystal formations. Can you get a closer look?" Against his better judgment, Marcus suited up for EVA and descended into the cavity using the drill shaft as an access point. The moment he stepped into the underground chamber, he knew he had discovered something extraordinary. The crystals weren't just glowing, they were warm. His suit's external temperature sensors registered a comfortable 22 degrees Celsius, impossible at this depth on a frozen moon. As Marcus moved deeper into the cavern, following a natural tunnel that seemed to spiral downward, he heard something that made him freeze. A sound that shouldn't exist in the vacuum of space, yet somehow reached his ears through the thin atmosphere his suit detected in this pocket of warmth. Crying. Not human crying, but something else. Something young and afraid and utterly alone. Marcus followed the sound through twisting passages lined with those strange, pulsing crystals. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber, and there, in the center of what appeared to be a nest made of precious metals and glowing stones, was a creature about the size of a large dog. It was unmistakably a dragon, though unlike anything from Earth's mythology. Its scales shimmered between deep purple and silver, and small wings folded against its back. But this wasn't the mighty beast of legends. This was clearly a baby, and it was in distress. The dragon's left wing was trapped under a fallen piece of crystal, pinning it to the ground. When it saw Marcus approaching, it let out a sound somewhere between a chirp and a growl, its large golden eyes wide with fear. "Easy there, little guy," Marcus said softly, even though he knew the creature couldn't understand him. He approached slowly, hands visible, the way he might approach a frightened animal back on Earth. The dragon watched him with intelligent eyes as Marcus carefully examined the crystal pinning its wing. The formation was heavy but not impossible to move. Marcus positioned himself and pushed, his exosuit servos whining with effort. The crystal shifted, then rolled away, freeing the small dragon's wing. The creature immediately tried to fly, but its wing was clearly injured. It managed only a few feet before landing awkwardly, letting out a pained cry that tugged at Marcus's heart. "You're hurt pretty bad, aren't you?" Marcus knelt down, keeping his movements slow and non-threatening. The dragon watched him warily but didn't try to flee. "I don't know much about dragon medicine, but I've got a universal medical kit in my suit. Let's see what we can do." Marcus had no idea why he was talking to an alien creature that probably couldn't understand a word he was saying, but it seemed to calm the little dragon. He carefully withdrew his emergency medical supplies and examined the wing. The membrane was torn but not severely, and there didn't appear to be any broken bones. Working with the delicate touch he'd learned from years of precision mining work, Marcus cleaned the wound with antiseptic gel and carefully applied a biomesh patch that would help the tissue heal. The dragon remained surprisingly still during the procedure, occasionally making soft sounds that almost seemed like it was trying to communicate. "There you go," Marcus said, sitting back on his heels. "That should help it heal properly. You'll be flying again in no time." The dragon looked at its treated wing, then back at Marcus. It took a tentative step forward and gently touched his gloved hand with its snout. The gesture was so clearly one of gratitude that Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. "You're welcome, little guy, but I should probably get going. My shift's not over, and if I don't check in soon, they'll send someone looking for me." As Marcus stood to leave, the dragon let out a series of chirps and clicks, following him toward the tunnel entrance. It seemed almost desperate to communicate something, but Marcus had no way to understand. "I'm sorry, buddy. I wish I could help more, but I don't speak dragon." Marcus made his way back through the tunnels, the dragon following as best it could with its injured wing. When they reached the chamber where he'd first descended, Marcus was surprised to see his drill platform's emergency beacon flashing. His communicator was full of increasingly frantic messages from the control station. "Marcus, where the hell are you? You've been dark for over 4 hours." 4 hours? Marcus checked his suit's chronometer. It felt like he'd been underground for maybe 30 minutes, but the timestamp confirmed it. Somehow, he'd lost nearly 4 hours in that cavern. "Control, this is Marcus. Sorry for the radio silence. Found some kind of natural cave system down here. The crystal formations were interfering with communications. Get back to the surface immediately. We've been detecting some unusual energy readings from your sector. Command thinks it might be gravitational anomalies." As Marcus prepared to ascend, the little dragon approached one more time. It carried something in its mouth, a small crystal that glowed with the same soft light as the formations in the cavern. The dragon dropped it at Marcus's feet and stepped back, making those same clicking sounds. Marcus picked up the crystal. It was warm to the touch and seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. "For me, you don't have to give me anything, little guy. I was just helping because it was the right thing to do." But the dragon seemed insistent, pushing the crystal toward him with its snout. Marcus carefully placed the crystal in his sample collection pouch. "All right, I'll take it, but only because you seem to want me to have it." The dragon made one final sound, something that sounded almost like a purr, and touched Marcus's hand again before retreating into the shadows of the cavern. As Marcus ascended back to the surface, he couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was more significant than he realized. The crystal in his pouch continued to pulse with that strange, warm light, and every time he looked at it, he thought about those intelligent golden eyes and the creature's obvious gratitude. Back on the surface, Marcus filed his incident report, describing the cave system and the unusual crystal formations. He made no mention of the dragon. Who would believe him? And more importantly, he had a strange protective instinct toward the creature. Something told him that keeping its existence secret was the right thing to do. But as he ended his shift and headed back to his quarters, Marcus had no idea that saving one small dragon would set in motion a chain of events that would change not just his life, but the entire relationship between humanity and the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known. The crystal in his pocket pulsed once more, and somewhere far below the surface of Kepler 442b, a baby dragon settled into its nest, its injured wing already beginning to heal, and dreamed of the strange, kind creature that had helped it without asking for anything in return. 3 weeks after the encounter in the crystal cavern, Marcus's life had settled back into its routine of mining shifts and solitary meals. The only reminder of that strange day was the crystal the dragon had given him, which he kept on his nightstand. It still pulsed with that rhythmic light, and sometimes, in the quiet moments before sleep, Marcus could swear it felt warm even through the metal of his quarters. He was halfway through his morning shift when the first ships appeared. They materialized out of hyperspace without warning, massive vessels that dwarfed the mining station like whales next to minnows. Marcus had never seen anything like them. The ships were sleek and organic-looking, their hulls seeming to flow like liquid metal in impossible shades of deep blue and silver. They moved with a grace that suggested advanced technology far beyond anything humanity possessed. The station's alarms began blaring, and Marcus's communicator erupted with panicked chatter from the control room. All personnel to emergency stations. Unknown vessels are approaching. This is not a drill. Marcus watched from his mining platform as more ships appeared, forming what was clearly a search formation. They spread out across the asteroid field, their searchlights sweeping across every surface, every mining installation, every piece of human equipment. "They're scanning everything," came the voice of Sarah Kim, the station's sensor technician. "Whatever they're looking for, they're being very thorough about it." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold of space. He looked down at the drill site where he'd discovered the cavern, then at his sample pouch where the dragon's crystal rested. A terrible suspicion began to form in his mind. The largest of the alien ships, a vessel easily a kilometer long, positioned itself directly above the mining station. Its hull opened like a flower, revealing a hangar bay that glowed with the same soft light Marcus had seen in the crystal cavern. A voice, speaking perfect English, echoed across all communication frequencies. "Attention, human mining facility. I am Commander Vexhai of the Draconian Imperial Fleet. We are conducting a search for a missing member of the Imperial family. You will cooperate fully with our investigation or face the consequences of harboring a kidnapped royal." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Royal. The little dragon he'd helped wasn't just any creature, it was royalty. And now its family was here looking for it, with what appeared to be enough firepower to reduce the entire mining station to cosmic dust. Marcus's hands shook as he activated his communicator. "Control, this is Marcus. I need to speak with whoever's in charge of this situation, right now." "Marcus, stay on your platform and await further instructions. The aliens are sending a delegation aboard the station." "You don't understand," Marcus said, his voice tight with urgency. "I think I know what they're looking for." Before Control could respond, Marcus was already sealing his EVA suit and preparing for emergency ascent. He had to get to the station before the alien delegation started their search. If they found evidence of his encounter with their missing royal, the situation could turn deadly very quickly. Marcus made the trip from his platform to the station's docking bay in record time. He arrived just as the alien delegation was coming aboard, and his first sight of them took his breath away. They were humanoid but clearly not human. Tall and elegant, with skin that seemed to shimmer with the same metallic quality as their ships. But what struck Marcus most were their eyes, large and golden, just like the baby dragons. And when they moved, there was something in their bearing that suggested barely contained power, as if they could transform into something much larger and more dangerous at any moment. The leader of the delegation, Commander Vexhai, stood nearly 7 feet tall. His uniform was a work of art, flowing fabric that seemed to be woven from starlight itself. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "I am here to question your crew about the whereabouts of Prince Zephyrhai, heir to the throne of stars. 3 weeks ago, his life pod malfunctioned during a diplomatic mission to the Andromeda systems. We traced his emergency beacon to this sector." Station Commander Patricia Walsh, a tough woman who'd run mining operations for 20 years, stepped forward. "Commander, we've had no contact with any alien life forms. This is strictly a commercial mining operation." Marcus watched from the back of the gathered crew as Vexhai's golden eyes swept across the room. When those eyes found his, Marcus felt like the alien commander was looking directly into his soul. "One of you is lying," Vexhai said quietly. "My sensors detect draconian biosignatures in this facility. Recent contact, within the last 3 weeks." The crystal in Marcus's sample pouch seemed to pulse more urgently, and he realized with growing horror that it was probably giving off the very biosignature the commander was detecting. "Furthermore," Vexhai continued, "we have detected traces of royal pheromones on the station. Someone here has been in direct contact with Prince Zephyrhai." The silence in the docking bay was deafening. Marcus could feel the weight of everyone's stares, and he knew that his secret was about to be exposed, whether he confessed or not. Taking a deep breath, Marcus stepped forward. "Commander Vexai," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. "I need to speak with you privately." The alien commander's eyes fixed on Marcus with laser intensity. "You are the one. You have encountered the prince." "Yes, sir, but not the way you think." Vexai gestured to his escorts, and they immediately created a protective circle around Marcus and their commander. "Explain, quickly." Marcus pulled the crystal from his pouch, watching as Vexai's eyes widened in recognition. 3 weeks ago, I found him trapped in a cave system about 50 meters below Platform 7. His wing was injured. I helped him, treated the wound, and he gave me this as thanks. Then I left. That's all that happened. "You freed the prince from the crystal fall," Vexai said, his voice filled with what sounded like amazement. "The emergency beacon showed he was trapped, but we could not determine his exact location or condition." "He's still down there," Marcus said. "At least I assume he is. The cavern seemed like his home with some kind of nest. I didn't take him or hurt him, I just helped with his wing and left." Vexai studied the crystal in Marcus's hand, then looked back at the human miner with an expression that was impossible to read. "You rendered aid to a member of the imperial family without expectation of reward," the commander said slowly. "This is unexpected." "I would have done the same for anyone who needed help," Marcus replied honestly. "I didn't know he was a prince. I just knew he was hurt and scared and alone." For a long moment, Vexai said nothing. Then he turned to his escorts and spoke in what Marcus assumed was their native language, a series of musical tones and harmonic resonances that sounded almost like singing. The response from his officers was immediate and dramatic. They dropped to one knee in what was clearly a gesture of respect, their eyes fixed on Marcus with something approaching awe. "Human Marcus Chen," Vexai said formally, "by imperial decree, you are hereby granted safe passage and protection under the crown. Your actions have earned you a debt of honor from the House of the Celestial Throne." Marcus blinked, completely overwhelmed. "I don't understand." "You will," Vexai said. "But first we must retrieve the prince. Will you guide us to him?" Marcus nodded, though his head was spinning with the implications of what was happening. "Of course, but can I ask you something?" "Speak." "When I was down there with him, I lost almost 4 hours, but it only felt like minutes. And the crystal, it pulses in rhythm with my heartbeat. What does that mean?" For the first time, Vexai's stern expression softened into something that might have been a smile. "It means, Marcus Chen of Earth, that Prince Zephyrhai has chosen you. And in choosing you, he may have just changed the fate of 2 civilizations." As the alien commander's words sank in, Marcus realized that his simple act of kindness toward an injured creature had somehow entangled him in galactic politics beyond his comprehension. The crystal in his hand pulsed once more, and he wondered what other surprises awaited him in the depths of that strange, warm cavern. Little did he know that his journey was just beginning, and that the baby dragon waiting below would soon become the key to forging an alliance that would reshape the galaxy itself. The descent into the crystal cavern was unlike anything Marcus had experienced before. Commander Vexai and 2 of his officers accompanied him, their advanced suits gliding effortlessly through the drill shaft that had taken Marcus considerable effort to navigate weeks earlier. Their technology was so far beyond human capabilities that Marcus felt like he was traveling with beings from another dimension entirely. But what struck him most was the change in the draconian officers as they entered the crystalline chamber. The moment they stepped into that warm, softly glowing space, their formal military bearing seemed to melt away, replaced by something that looked almost like reverence. "By the eternal stars," whispered Lieutenant Kethai, the younger of the 2 officers. "A true sanctuary. No wonder the prince survived his crash." Vexai knelt and placed his gloved hand against one of the pulsing crystal formations. "These formations are ancient, older than our recorded history. They are alive in ways your science cannot measure, human Marcus. They respond to draconian life force, providing warmth, breathable atmosphere, and healing energy." That explains why I lost track of time down here, Marcus said, and why the little guy recovered so quickly from his injury. Prince Zephyrhai, Vexhai corrected gently. And yes, the crystals would have accelerated his healing, but only after you freed him from the trap. Without your intervention, he would have died before the sanctuary could save him. As they made their way through the twisting passages toward the central chamber, Marcus noticed that the crystal formations were glowing more brightly than before, their pulse quickening with anticipation. When they finally emerged into the vast space where Marcus had first found the injured dragon, they were greeted by a sight that took everyone's breath away. Prince Zephyrhai was no longer the small, frightened creature Marcus remembered. In 3 weeks, he had grown considerably, now standing about 3 feet tall with wings that could fully extend to nearly 6 feet across. The biomesh patch Marcus had applied was gone, and the wing showed no sign of the injury that had once crippled it. But most remarkably, the prince was not alone. Around him, arranged in a protective circle, were dozens of the crystal formations, but these were different from the others. They moved with purpose, shifting and rearranging themselves like living sentinels. As the group entered the chamber, these guardian crystals hummed with harmonious tones that filled the air with music. Prince Zephyrhai saw Marcus and immediately let out a series of excited chirps and clicks. He bounded across the chamber with surprising grace, his movements now confident and strong. When he reached Marcus, he did something that surprised everyone present. He spoke, not in the musical tones of the draconian language, but in halting, accented English. "Friend Marcus," the young dragon said, his voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "You returned." Marcus stared in shock. "You can talk. I mean, you learned English." "The crystals," Zephyrhai explained, gesturing toward the glowing formations around them. "They hold memories, knowledge. When you helped me, they absorbed your language, your thoughts, your kindness. They taught me." Commander Vexhai stepped forward, dropping to one knee in a formal bow. "My prince, the entire fleet has been searching for you. Your father, the emperor, fears the worst." Zephyrhai looked between his rescue party and Marcus, his golden eyes troubled. "I know, Commander, but I could not leave, not without saying proper thanks to the one who saved my life." "Your Highness," Vexhai said carefully, "we must return you to the capital immediately. The Andromeda Summit is in 3 days, and your presence is required for the peace negotiations." "I will return," Zephyrhai said firmly, "but friend Marcus comes with me." The silence that followed this pronouncement was profound. Marcus felt his knees go weak. "Your Highness," Lieutenant Kethai said nervously, "humans are not permitted in the capital. Imperial law forbids." "Imperial law," Zephyrhai interrupted with surprising authority for such a young dragon, "also states that one who saves the life of a royal family member is entitled to request a boon from the crown. I claim that law on behalf of friend Marcus." Vexhai's expression was unreadable. "Prince, what you suggest is unprecedented. No alien has ever set foot on the capital world." "Then it is time for precedent to be set," Zephyrhai replied. He turned to Marcus, his eyes bright with excitement. "Friend Marcus, will you come with me? There is much I wish to show you, and much my father needs to hear about your kind." Marcus felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was being offered. Travel to an alien capital, meet the emperor of a galactic civilization. 3 weeks ago, his biggest concern had been making quota on his mining shift. "I don't know if I'm the right person for something like that," Marcus said honestly. "I'm just a miner. I don't know anything about diplomacy or politics." "That," said Zephyrhai with what sounded suspiciously like amusement, "is exactly why you are the right person." Before Marcus could respond, the crystal formations around them began to pulse in rapid sequence, and the chamber filled with a sound like distant singing. The guardian crystals moved closer, forming a tighter circle around the group. "Something approaches," Vexhai said, his hand moving to what Marcus assumed was a weapon. "The crystals are warning us." The singing grew louder, and suddenly the chamber was filled with light as a figure materialized in the center of the crystal circle. Marcus expected another draconian, but what appeared was something entirely different. The being stood nearly 8 feet tall, its form constantly shifting between solid matter and pure energy. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I am the keeper of the sanctuary," it said, the words resonating not in Marcus's ears but directly in his mind. "For 10,000 years, I have guarded this place of healing and protection. Today, I witness something that has not occurred since the early days of the Draconian Empire." Zephyrhai stepped forward, bowing deeply. "Honored keeper, we seek only to return home safely." "And you shall," the keeper replied. But not unchanged, human Marcus Chen approached. Marcus felt his legs moving without his conscious control, drawn by some force he couldn't resist. When he stood before the keeper, he felt a presence in his mind, gentle but vast beyond comprehension. "You acted without thought of reward," the keeper said. "You showed compassion to a creature you did not recognize in a place that should have terrified you. Such actions resonate through the crystal matrix, creating ripples that touch distant stars." The keeper extended what might have been a hand, and Marcus felt compelled to take it. The moment they touched, images flooded his mind. He saw the galaxy as it truly was, not empty space between stars, but a vast network of life and consciousness. He saw the Draconian Empire at its height, a civilization that had brought peace and prosperity to 1,000 worlds. And he saw something else, something that made his blood run cold. Darkness at the edge of known space. An ancient enemy stirring after millennia of slumber. War coming to the galaxy, war that would consume everything unless the civilizations of known space could unite against it. "You see," the keeper said softly, "the choice made by Prince Zephyrhai to trust you, to call you friend, may be the first step toward the alliance that will save all our peoples." The visions faded, leaving Marcus gasping and shaken. The keeper's form began to grow translucent. "Go now," it said. "Carry the gift of the crystals with you and remember what you have seen. The galaxy's future may depend on the friendship you have forged in this place." As the keeper vanished, the chamber began to change. The guardian crystals moved back to their original positions, but several of the smaller formations broke away from the walls and moved toward Marcus. They surrounded him briefly, humming with that harmonic song, then each one touched him gently before returning to their places. "They have marked you," Zephyrhai said with obvious excitement. "Friend Marcus, you now carry a piece of the sanctuary with you always. No matter where in the galaxy you go, the crystals will recognize you as a protector and friend." Marcus looked down at his hands and saw that they now glowed with the same soft light as the formations around them. The sensation was warm and comforting, like being embraced by starlight itself. "What does this mean?" he asked. "It means," Commander Vexhai said, his voice filled with something approaching awe, "that you are no longer just Marcus Chen, human miner. You are Marcus Chen, crystal bearer, friend to the Imperial House, and possibly the key to forging an alliance that will determine the fate of the galaxy." As they prepared to leave the sanctuary, Marcus took one last look around the chamber that had changed his life so completely. The crystals pulsed in what seemed like farewell, their light painting rainbow patterns on the walls. He had come here 3 weeks ago as a man running from his failures, and now he was leaving as something he couldn't even begin to understand. But one thing was certain. His journey was just beginning, and the little dragon flying beside him would be his guide into a larger universe than he had ever imagined possible. The crystal formations sang them out of the sanctuary with harmonies that would echo in Marcus's memory forever. And above them, the stars waited to welcome an unlikely ambassador from a small blue world on the edge of nowhere. The capital ship of the Draconian Imperial Fleet was a city unto itself, stretching over 5 kilometers from bow to stern and housing nearly 1 million souls. Marcus had thought the vessels that arrived at the mining station were impressive, but they were mere escorts compared to this massive flagship that served as the mobile palace of the imperial family. As their transport shuttle approached the hangar bay, Marcus pressed his face to the viewport, trying to comprehend the scale of what he was seeing. Gardens floated in zero gravity behind transparent walls, their exotic plants creating cascades of color against the star field. Streams of water flowed in impossible spirals through the ship's corridors, defying physics in ways that made Marcus's engineer brain ache. The capital ship adjusts its internal gravity and physics to accommodate many different species, Prince Zephyrhai explained, noticing Marcus's confusion. My people learned long ago that true unity requires making space for others to feel at home. Commander Vexai, who had been unusually quiet during the journey, turned from his position near the shuttle's controls. Prince, I must warn you, the court has been in considerable turmoil during your absence. There are those who will not welcome the presence of a human, regardless of the service he has rendered. Zephyrhai's scales seemed to darken slightly, and Marcus caught a glimpse of the formidable adult dragon the prince would one day become. Let them voice their objections to me personally, Commander. Friend Marcus travels under my protection and by right of imperial law. As they docked, Marcus felt his nervousness increase exponentially. The crystal formations from the sanctuary had left their mark on him, but he was still fundamentally a human miner about to walk into the heart of a civilization that spanned half the galaxy. The glowing marks on his hands pulsed gently, and he drew what comfort he could from their warmth. The hangar bay doors opened to reveal a reception committee that took Marcus's breath away. Dozens of draconians in elaborate robes and uniforms stood in formation, their scales reflecting the ship's lights like living rainbows. But what commanded Marcus's attention was the figure at the center of the group. Emperor Thanhai stood nearly 9 feet tall, his scales a deep gold that seemed to contain the light of stars. When he moved, there was no question that he could transform into something magnificent and terrible. His golden eyes, so like his son's but ancient and wise beyond measure, fixed on Marcus with an intensity that made him want to kneel. My son, the Emperor said, his voice carrying easily across the hangar despite its gentle tone. We feared the worst when your beacon went silent. I am well, father, Zephyrhai replied, approaching with dignity befitting his station. Thanks to the courage and kindness of my friend, Marcus Chen of Earth. The Emperor's gaze shifted to Marcus, and for a moment, the human felt as though he was being weighed and measured by forces beyond his understanding. Then something remarkable happened. The Emperor smiled. Marcus Chen of Earth, Thanhai said, stepping forward. My son lives because of your actions. How does one repay such a debt? Marcus found his voice, though it came out somewhat smaller than he'd intended. Your Majesty, no payment is necessary. Anyone would have done the same. A ripple of surprised murmurs went through the assembled court. Several of the draconians exchanged meaningful glances, and Marcus got the distinct impression that his response was not what they had expected. Would they? The Emperor asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. In my experience, beings who encounter members of the imperial family usually have very specific requests. Territory, wealth, political favor. You ask for nothing. I was just helping someone who needed it, Marcus said honestly. Where I come from, that's what you do. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment, studying Marcus with those ancient golden eyes. Finally, he nodded as if coming to some internal decision. Then Earth has produced beings of honor, Thanhai said. This is knowledge worth having. Come, Marcus Chen, there is much we must discuss. As the Emperor turned to lead them from the hangar, one of the court officials stepped forward. Marcus recognized the signs of barely contained hostility in the being's posture. Your Majesty, the official said, his voice dripping with disapproval. Surely the presence of an alien at court violates numerous protocols, the security implications alone. Lord Nexushai, Zephyrhai interrupted, his young voice carrying surprising authority. Are you questioning my judgment in the selection of my companions? The official, Lord Nexushai, bowed stiffly. Of course not, Your Highness, but the Andromeda Summit begins tomorrow, and having an unknown alien present during such delicate negotiations will demonstrate to our allies and enemies alike that the Draconian Empire values honor above prejudice, the Emperor finished firmly. Marcus Chen will attend the summit as my personal guest. The announcement sent another wave of shocked murmurs through the court, but the Emperor's word was clearly final. As they moved through the ship's magnificent corridors, Marcus couldn't help but notice the stares and whispers that followed them. Some seemed curious, others hostile, but all were intensely interested in the human who had somehow earned a place at the Emperor's side. Zephyr flew alongside Marcus as they walked, occasionally pointing out features of the ship or explaining some aspect of draconian culture. It was clear the young prince was proud to show his friend the wonders of his people's achievements, and Marcus found himself genuinely amazed by what he saw. The ship contained entire ecosystems, libraries that stored the knowledge of 1,000 worlds, and workshops where artisans created beauty that transcended species boundaries. It was a mobile civilization, a testament to what a people could accomplish when they thought beyond the confines of a single world. "Tomorrow," the Emperor said as they approached what Marcus assumed were the royal quarters, "you will witness the culmination of 3 years of careful diplomacy. The Andromeda galaxy has been ravaged by war for centuries. We seek to broker a lasting peace between 7 major factions, each with grievances dating back millennia." "That sounds incredibly complicated," Marcus said. "Indeed it is," Thanhai agreed. "Which is why I find myself curious about your perspective. You come from a young species, unencumbered by the weight of ancient prejudices. Sometimes, fresh eyes see solutions that experience overlooks." That evening, Marcus was given quarters that were more luxurious than anything he had ever experienced. The walls could be made transparent to provide a stunning view of the star field. The furniture adapted itself to his human physiology, and the room's environmental controls created a perfect replica of Earth's atmosphere. But despite the comfort, Marcus found himself unable to sleep. The weight of what was happening pressed down on him like a physical force. Tomorrow, he would sit in on negotiations that could determine the fate of entire civilizations. How had his life taken such an impossible turn? A soft chiming at his door interrupted his troubled thoughts. When he opened it, he found Prince Zephyr hovering outside, his wings beating slowly to keep him aloft in the corridor's lower gravity. "Friend Marcus," the prince said, "may I enter? I sense your distress." Marcus nodded, and Zephyr glided into the room, settling gracefully on the floor beside the large viewing window. "You are afraid," the prince observed. It wasn't a question. "Terrified," Marcus admitted. "I'm completely out of my depth here. I don't understand galactic politics or ancient grievances or any of it. What if I say the wrong thing? What if I make things worse?" Zephyr turned his golden eyes toward the stars visible beyond the window. "When I was trapped beneath that crystal, I was also afraid. I thought I would die alone, forgotten in the dark. But then you came, and you did not see a prince or a political opportunity. You saw someone who needed help, and you gave it freely." The young dragon turned to look at Marcus directly. "That is what my father sees in you, friend Marcus. Not knowledge of politics or ancient histories, but the ability to see past such things to what truly matters. Tomorrow, when those 7 factions sit down to argue over borders and resources and old wounds, they will see a human who saved a dragon's life simply because it was right to do so. And you think that will make a difference?" "I think," Zephyr said with quiet certainty, "that sometimes the most powerful diplomatic tool is not wisdom or cunning, but simple, honest goodness. And I think the galaxy is about to learn that humanity possesses that quality in abundance." As the prince prepared to leave, he paused at the door. "Friend Marcus, tomorrow will bring challenges neither of us can imagine. But whatever happens, remember that you carry the light of the crystal sanctuary within you. Trust in that light, and it will guide you true." After Zephyr left, Marcus returned to the viewing window and stared out at the vast star field beyond. Somewhere out there, among those distant suns, lay Earth and the life he had known. It seemed impossibly far away now, as if it belonged to someone else entirely. The crystal markings on his hands pulsed gently, and Marcus felt a warmth that wasn't entirely physical. He thought about the keeper's words in the sanctuary, about darkness stirring at the edge of known space, and the need for alliance among the civilizations of the galaxy. Perhaps Zephyr was right. Perhaps his simple act of kindness toward an injured creature could somehow ripple outward to touch the fate of stars. Marcus didn't understand how such a thing was possible, but he was beginning to realize that the universe was far stranger and more interconnected than he had ever imagined. Tomorrow would bring the Andromeda Summit, and with it, challenges that would test everything he thought he knew about himself and his place in the cosmos. But tonight, surrounded by the gentle light of an alien sun and carrying the friendship of a young dragon prince, Marcus Chen of Earth prepared to step onto a stage larger than worlds and play a part he was only beginning to understand. The Grand Assembly Chamber of the Imperial flagship was a marvel of engineering and artistry that defied human comprehension. The circular room stretched nearly half a kilometer in diameter, its domed ceiling displaying a perfect replica of the galaxy itself, with each star system represented as a point of living light. 7 massive platforms floated in the chamber's center, each one designed to accommodate the specific environmental needs of the Andromeda galaxy's major powers. Marcus stood beside Emperor Thanhai on the Imperial platform, trying to project calm confidence while his heart hammered against his ribs. Around them, the assembled representatives of 7 civilizations eyed each other with barely concealed hostility, the weight of centuries-old grievances filling the air like a toxic cloud. Prince Zephyrhai perched nearby, his young eyes bright with excitement and nervous energy. "The delegations have been arriving all morning," he whispered to Marcus, each one more suspicious than the last. Marcus surveyed the other platforms, trying to understand what he was seeing. The crystalline collective appeared as beings of living mineral, their forms shifting and sparkling in the chamber's light. The void touched were the opposite, creatures of pure darkness that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The machine hegemony sent mechanical representatives that clicked and whirred with every movement, while the Bloom Consortium were plant-like beings that swayed as if in an unfelt breeze. Most disturbing were the representatives of the consuming tide and the bone merchants, whose very presence seemed to make the air itself feel cold and threatening. Marcus didn't need anyone to explain that these were the more aggressive factions, the ones who profited from the ongoing conflicts. "Honored delegates," Emperor Thanhai began, his voice carrying easily across the vast chamber, "we gather today to discuss the possibility of lasting peace in the Andromeda galaxy. For 3 centuries, our civilizations have been locked in conflicts that have consumed entire star systems and cost billions of lives." "Pretty words, Thanhai," interrupted the lead representative of the bone merchants, a skeletal being whose voice sounded like grinding stone. "But what does the Draconian Empire offer beyond the same territorial concessions we have rejected for decades?" "Actually," the Emperor replied with surprising mildness, "today I offer something entirely new, a perspective from beyond our local conflicts. May I present Marcus Chen of Earth, survivor of the Crystal Sanctuary and friend to the Imperial House." The reaction was immediate and explosive. Several delegates began speaking at once, their voices rising in a cacophony of outrage and disbelief. "An alien observer, unacceptable. This is clearly a draconian ploy to introduce bias into the negotiations. What authority does this creature have to speak on our affairs?" Emperor Thanhai raised his hand, and the chamber fell silent. The power radiating from him was unmistakable, a reminder that the Draconian Empire commanded respect through strength as well as wisdom. "Marcus Chen speaks with no authority save that of an outside observer," the Emperor said calmly. "His people have never been involved in our conflicts, have no territorial claims in Andromeda, and no agenda beyond peace. Perhaps that makes him uniquely qualified to see solutions we cannot." The representative of the crystalline collective, a being whose form sparkled like a living diamond, leaned forward with obvious interest. "This human, he survived the Crystal Sanctuary. That is significant. The ancient sites choose their own guardians." Marcus felt the crystal markings on his hands warm in response to the collective's attention. He hadn't realized that other species would recognize what had happened to him in the sanctuary. "Indeed," said the leader of the machine hegemony, its mechanical voice precise and emotionless. "Our records indicate that no non-draconian has ever been accepted by a sanctuary. This suggests an unprecedented level of compatibility with ancient technologies." "All very interesting," growled the consuming tide's representative, a mass of writhing tentacles around a central maw filled with teeth. But what does it matter? This galaxy has been at war for centuries because war is profitable. Peace serves no one's interests. That statement hit Marcus like a physical blow. He thought of all the suffering the Emperor had described, all the lost lives and destroyed worlds, reduced to a simple matter of profit and loss. Without conscious thought, he stepped forward. "Actually," Marcus said, his voice carrying farther than he expected in the chamber's acoustics, "that's where you're wrong." The sudden attention of 7 alien civilizations focused on him was almost overwhelming, but Marcus pressed on, drawing strength from the warm pulse of the crystal marks on his hands. "Where I come from, we learned something important about conflict. War might be profitable for some in the short term, but peace is profitable for everyone in the long term. When you're not spending resources on weapons and soldiers, you can spend them on exploration, on art, on advancing your civilization." "Naive sentiment from a primitive species," the bone merchant representative said dismissively. "Your people haven't faced the realities of galactic politics." "No," Marcus agreed, "we haven't. But we've faced our own conflicts, and we learned that the only way forward is to find common ground." He gestured toward the galaxy display above them. "I've been studying your histories since I arrived, and you know what I see. 7 civilizations that are so focused on their differences that they can't see how much they have in common." The void-touched representative spoke for the first time, its voice like whispered shadows. "Elaborate, human." Marcus took a deep breath, knowing that what he said next could either move the negotiations forward or destroy them entirely. "You all explore space, which means you all value discovery. You all developed interstellar technology, which means you all prize knowledge and innovation. You all sent representatives here, which means you all at least hope for something better than endless war." He paused, looking around the chamber. "But more than that, you all chose to settle in the same galaxy, which suggests you all found something they're worth fighting for. Instead of fighting over it, why not work together to protect it?" "Protect it from what?" asked the Bloom Consortium's representative, its voice like rustling leaves. Marcus hesitated, remembering the visions the Keeper had shown him in the crystal sanctuary. He hadn't intended to reveal what he'd seen, but the moment seemed to demand truth. "From the darkness at the edge of known space," he said quietly. "The ancient enemy that destroyed civilizations before yours ever reached the stars. It's stirring again, and when it comes, your individual territories won't matter. Only unity will save you." The chamber fell absolutely silent. Marcus watched as the delegates looked at each other with new understanding, fear replacing hostility in their expressions. "How do you know of this?" the Crystalline Collective's representative asked, its form flickering with agitation. "The crystal sanctuary showed me," Marcus said simply. "The ancient sites hold memories of the galaxy's past and warnings about its future." Emperor Thanhai stepped forward, his expression grave. "Our deepest archives speak of this enemy in whispers. We had hoped the threat was ended forever, but if the sanctuaries are awakening, then we have little time to waste on territorial disputes," finished the machine hegemony's representative. "Our calculations suggest that a unified defense is the only logical response to an existential threat." What followed was the most remarkable transformation Marcus had ever witnessed. The hostile posturing that had dominated the chamber moments before dissolved as the delegates began discussing practical matters of mutual defense and resource sharing. Ancient grievances were set aside as they faced the prospect of a threat that could destroy them all. Prince Zephyrhai moved close to Marcus, his eyes bright with admiration. "Friend Marcus, you have done something extraordinary. You have given them a reason to choose unity over conflict." "I just told them the truth," Marcus replied, still somewhat stunned by the rapid change in the chamber's atmosphere. "Sometimes," said Emperor Thanhai with a proud smile, "that is the most powerful force in the universe." The negotiations continued for hours, but the tone had completely changed. Instead of arguing over borders and resources, the delegates worked together to plan a defensive alliance that would protect all their worlds from the coming darkness. Treaties were drafted, resource-sharing agreements were negotiated, and for the first time in centuries, the Andromeda Galaxy began to speak with one voice. As the formal sessions concluded, delegate after delegate approached Marcus to express their gratitude and to learn more about humanity. The Crystalline Collective offered to share their advanced material sciences, the machine hegemony proposed technological exchanges, and even the more aggressive factions spoke of cooperation rather than conquest. "It appears," Emperor Thanhai observed as they watched the delegates preparing to depart, "that Earth has produced more than just one exceptional individual. If Marcus Chen is representative of his species, then humanity may be the key to uniting not just Andromeda, but the entire galaxy." That evening, as the Imperial fleet prepared to escort the various delegations back to their home worlds to ratify the new alliance, Marcus found himself once again at the viewing window of his quarters. But this time, Prince Zephyrhai was with him, and they were joined by Emperor Thanhai himself. "What happens now?" Marcus asked, still trying to process the magnitude of what had occurred. "Now," the Emperor replied, "the real work begins. The alliance must be built, defenses must be prepared, and other civilizations must be brought into the fold. It will be the work of generations." "Will I be going home?" Marcus asked, though he wasn't sure that Earth still felt like home after everything he'd experienced. Emperor Thanhai smiled. "That depends entirely on what you wish to do. The galaxy has many wonders to explore, and many civilizations that would benefit from your unique perspective. And you will always have a place here," Zephyrhai added earnestly. "The Imperial Court has voted to name you the first human ambassador to the Draconian Empire. The position comes with its own ship, staff, and the resources to travel wherever you feel you can do the most good." Marcus looked out at the stars, thinking about the small mining station where his journey had begun and the vast galaxy that now lay open before him. He thought about his old life, running from failure and disappointment, and compared it to the possibilities that stretched ahead. "There's something I need to do first," he said finally. "Earth needs to know what's coming. My people need time to prepare to join this alliance to take their place among the stars." "Then we shall escort you home," Emperor Thanhai said without hesitation. "It will be our honor to make formal contact with your people and to offer them full membership in the Galactic Alliance." As the Imperial fleet turned toward Earth, Marcus reflected on the strange chain of events that had brought him to this moment. A simple act of kindness toward an injured creature had rippled outward to change the fate of civilizations. The baby dragon he'd helped was now Prince Zephyrhai, heir to an empire and his closest friend in the galaxy. The Crystal Sanctuary had marked him as something more than human, and that mark had opened doors he never could have imagined. The stars ahead held challenges that would dwarf anything humanity had ever faced, but they also held wonders beyond imagination and the promise of a future among the cosmic community. Marcus Chen, former miner and newly appointed ambassador, settled in for the journey home, knowing that he carried with him not just the friendship of a dragon prince, but the hopes of an entire galaxy united against the darkness. Behind them, the Andromeda Galaxy began the great work of transformation from a battlefield into a fortress. And at the edge of known space, something ancient and malevolent stirred, drawn by the light of unity that had begun to shine where once there had been only the darkness of endless war. The real adventure was just beginning.